Please welcome Nana Visitor.
Thank you, Patty. Oh, this is supposed to be for Terry. I know. I miss her. I know you do too. But
We always do, so it's fine. But yes, that's it. First and foremost, I need to say this.
say it.
I need to apologize. The very first thing we did was virtually when we're doing those virtuals during
I remember
lockdown,
them.
and there are a lot of them are still online, so check them on out. And I made a rookie mistake that I'm sure a lot of people do. I mispronounced your first name.
But that's easy. That's easy to do. The easier the name, the easier it is to mispronounce. But you know what that's from? So my whole life until I got to DS9 was Nana, Nana, Nan, Nan, whatever. And I answered to all of it. I thought, But Avery Brooks, when he met me, said, "How do you like your name pronounced?" And in that moment, I thought, I was so impressed. I was working with Avery Brooks. I was like, and Renee Aubergenois. I was fans of both their work. And I thought, I got to come up with something. And I thought of how my mother would say it, which she was French. And she said, Nana. And I went, I like Nana. And within about 2 weeks, he had everyone at Paramount calling me Nana. And it was great because not only was it signed in such caring respect that Avery showed all the time, but it also, every time I hear that, I remember my mother, who I adored. Yeah.
Oh, that's it. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for accepting my apology.
Absolutely. Wait, did I? I'm not sure I did.
Oh. Well, it's funny. I remember because I talked to Armin about that. I remember during that virtual thing, Armin several times kind of looked at the camera. I think he was looking at me. He's like, so Nana. I think he was like his back way correcting me,
But thank God we had those. Those were wonderful. To be able to connect online during those times, it was great. It was really great.
No, absolutely. I think I keep asking the boss, like, can we bring that back? And I'm like, that's for another day. But no, absolutely. Since, like I said, since we have this one-on-one opportunity, I always start off with this. What's the origin story? What drew you into becoming a performer?
I was born into it. My mother was this really famous ballet teacher in New York City. She had all these famous dancers and actors who would come to study with her because she didn't just teach ballet, she taught a way of thinking. She was bizarrely ahead of her time. And my father was a Broadway choreographer who'd worked with huge names in the business. And they couldn't afford, because the business was up and down and up and down. And I would go into rehearsals because they wouldn't get a babysitter and be quiet and sit there for hours. And I'd watch and I'd play games with myself. And in my mother's class, too, that I would watch and go, what makes her better than, why am I watching her instead of her? What are they doing that makes me feel something? And by the time I was 17, I just got up and danced. It just came from nowhere. And I started working as a dancer. And acting was what I wanted to do, but dancing paid my bills from then on.
Indeed. And one of your... I walk into this trepidatiously, and this way too, because I've heard so much about this director, and I heard so much about this film. One of your first on-screen things was in a film called The Sentinel, which Chris Sarandon said almost made him quit acting.
Did he really?
Yes.
Oh, I must talk to him about that.
Yes, and the director, Michael Winner, is infamous. And I will say this way too.
Yeah.
Marina worked with him on another project, and
yes, I did know that.
Yeah.
And I think it was at the time, this happened on Broadway too. Directors got the idea that the more offensive and more cruel they were, that they could manipulate you into a performance. And then I think maybe it just became something that took over their persona. And I'll tell you what it did to me. I went, I do not need to do films. I was, yeah, I don't know, I was between 18 and 20, and I went, I'll be in TV because no director has that much power in TV, you know? And you're in and out. It's not like you're there for a long period of time, and that's what I did. I stayed away from films because of that.
Well, I'm sorry you had that experience, but yeah, to having to go through that in your first time on a film, being excited going into it, and that
Yeah.
cast, you look at it on paper, that's an amazing cast, you know,
I
and
saw the film recently. Who's seen The Sentinel? It's god awful. It's just God. It's one of those things. You know, I look at Deep Space Nine and I go, this aged so well. This film did not. the the gates of hell. It's all inappropriate. It's all so wrong. It's just terrible. It's terrible.
but it is yeah, young Chris Sarandon, young Jeff Goldblum, and again, a lot of people. And
I did my scene with Ava Gardner.
yeah.
Yeah.
I've always talked with Chris, and I have sat down with it. We talked a lot, and it's like it's an interesting snapshot in generations.
Yes.
You know, it's like so many of like classic like actors from that previous era, and then so many young people coming on to do wonderful things. And
Yeah.
I just wish that boot camp for you guys had been better experience.
Well, it was one of those movies like, you know, all those films that had a million people in it, the famous names. It's like, let's just load all the names in. And it doesn't really matter what the script is. We're just going to make you watch it.
It's like an
because-
Exorcist knockoff, for lack of a better term. It was like that era of, oh, let's throw
But
that
not
over.
anywhere close to The Exorcist. Please don't go find this film. It's unless you want kind of a good laugh. That might be a good reason.
Oh, absolutely.
There was one man, I think, who raised his hand.
I think one or two, yeah.
One or two? I bet the book is great.
I have heard good things about the book.
Yeah, isn't that awful? Yeah. Okay.
If it's any consolation, the director of that was eventually called out for his bad behavior, and he went back to the UK and he became a restaurant critic.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, Michael Winner
Became a
eventually
restaurant
became
critic.
a restaurant critic, in
Which
the
is
UK.
a great thing to be, but from the way he liked to control things, yeah, that's kind of great. That's good.
This is not medium rare. Blah. So I think karma caught up to him.
Yeah, good.
So absolutely too. So another thing you popped up into, and this is another like snapshot thing in the evolution of superheroes being put in other media, The Spirit.
Oh yes.
With Sam Jones.
Sam Jones, dear Sam Jones.
Yes, absolutely. The Spirit is Will Eisner's classic comic book character and comic strip character. Broke a lot of it. First of all, Will Eisner elevated just visual storytelling in comics, and he was a teacher and mentor for decades. And the Spirit was the first comic book character that would get beaten up. Like other comics at a point, they would like one punch and fall down. His fight scenes were choreographed. He would grab pool cues and bash guys with it. And when he got a black eye and a bloody lip, that whole issue, he'd have a black eye and a fat lip and stuff like that. So everybody was a little bit excited for this translation, and it was half that intent, and then it still had the shadow of the Adam West kind of era to it. But I think it's charming. I think it was absolutely charming, and I believe it was meant to be a pilot, correct?
It was, and it was at the time I was in Hollywood, and you know, every pilot season you'd hope to at least get one pilot. You knew they weren't all going to go, but it was a good job. And this was one of those movies that they were hoping it would be a pilot, but it didn't. So it just got, you know, burned off in the summer viewing. But you know, here's the thing. Back then, I was either perky or dangerous. If I dyed my hair dark, I was dangerous, and I did those jobs. And it was like, okay, I think I've kind of burned this out for a while, so I'd dye my hair blonde, and then I'd be perky. So this was a perky character that I got to play. She was perky. I just read a review, and someone had a TV guide with a review, and it was like, she's so perky. And I was.
There are worse reviews.
There are worse reviews.
No, absolutely. You've had a very solid theater career. What do you consider to be your greatest achievement in that?
I'd say I'd say playing Roxy Hart in Chicago on Broadway because it was so satisfying. One of my favorite musicals ever. And I just remember, I, you know, I think it was sometimes for TV and film, I felt like a wild animal that was caged and told, you're going to be looked at and we're going to tell you how to behave. But in theater, I felt like a panther that had just been dropped into the savannah and I could do what I knew how to do. And once you watch, this is the best part of stage. Right there, right here, there's nothing. You've got nothing. One step, no one can stop you now. For the next hour, 2 hours, this is yours and you own it. And that is one of the best feelings in the world. Because it's scary too, because anything can happen and you can go up. I've done that. You can fall. I remember I was doing 42nd Street and a big tap number for Peggy Sawyer, and all the girls go into your dance, and they point to me, and I'm supposed to, do this incredible tap routine to impress them, and I fall right on my ass at the Schubert Theater in Los Angeles. And it felt like 2 years I was down there looking up at their faces. This is never going to end. But that's the excitement. You don't know. And nothing's going to help you but you. So it's cool.
We should probably talk about that space show. And we've talked about this before, but real quick for the audience, because I'm sure a lot of the questions will focus on that. To this day, what is the best memory you've taken from Star Trek?
Community. That's the word that comes to mind. The community, the friendships, the deep, deep, deep relationships that I have with the people that I worked with. This community that came out of that one that is like, I can't imagine not having this. This is so unique and wonderful. I was telling a man earlier today, we start on a frequency. We know how to start talking to each other because we know that we like Star Trek, and that probably means we're both into hope and courage and realizing we're not alone. And that's basis enough for a connection and a relationship. And we start there. I find that incredible. I think that's what I take away, the best thing.
And you've given us back this fantastic book. So let's talk about that for a little bit. What was the impetus for it?
I didn't have one. I got a call from Ben Robinson, who does a lot of Star Trek books, and he said, listen, I've got an idea for this book for the women of Star Trek, but I don't think I should write it. I think a woman should, so I'm asking you. And the idea was to have each character and write a paragraph and have like an archetype that character would be, like mother or goddess or whatever. And I said, okay, I'll do it because, and I got this from William Shatner, just say yes. Just say yes. The idea terrified me. I'd never written a book. I like to write, and I've written essays always just by myself. But it was a terrifying idea. So I said yes, and then I thought, but Ben, what if we talk about the cultural effect and what the women were going through, how the culture was affecting them? And to his credit, he said, yeah, do it your way. And he gave me complete leeway, as did CBS, because they read every single word. And I thought that a lot of what I wrote was a little controversial and that they would edit me. And I went, I'm just going to write it and they'll edit it, whatever. They left every word in. And I was so impressed and grateful for that. Yeah.
Wow. So go ahead. Go a little more about in the book. What can they experience when they buy it? Because they're all going to get it, right?
Well, I didn't get to interview everyone, but I got to interview someone from each show, other than Starfleet Academy, because that wasn't happening yet. And I go through the shows from the 60s on, fantastic pictures. The book itself is beautiful. But I interviewed 5 of the original guest stars. They came to my house for lunch. It was fascinating, fascinating, these women. And I interviewed the women that I could get, it was during COVID, that I could make connections with. And then I interviewed a lot of audience members. And I interviewed people who were affected by the show. I interviewed Samantha Cristoforetti, the astronaut, and politicians, and doctors, and school teachers. And I learned so much. And every time I didn't know something, every time I got tripped up, I had to learn how to interview. It's an art. It's not, because I found myself, because they were filmed, it was like, why am I still talking? Why aren't they talking? I'm talking too much. I'm not asking questions. I'm telling them what I want to hear. So I had to go back and learn how to do that. I stopped and read some books on feminism. I stopped and read books on bias. Every time I got tripped up, I'd stop and find a great book to educate. It was an incredible education. And the one thing Ben would say is, when it got to my stuff, he said, nope, more personal. It's like, ugh. It's like, I'd send it back. Nope, more personal. It's, ugh. And I do it again. And then I got to a place which is the scariest place to do. I remember where I wrote was in this tiny little room. It was a storage room in the basement, and I turned it into a ridiculously glorious, it's like over the top beautiful because it's this tiny storage area. There were roses hanging and black walls and very, I wanted it to look very rococo, so it does. But I can't close myself in there because it's airless. But that's where I wrote. And I remember climbing the stairs just going, I can't do this. And my husband said, just go down there and write the truth. That's really simple. Just write the truth. And that's what I did. And that's the book.
All right. Available at all fine booksellers?
Yes, and on Amazon as well.
You get a piece of candy for that.
Oh, yay! Yay!
What's since you took this opportunity being inside Star Trek for so long, you had this opportunity to take a step outward
And watch all the shows.
Oh.
I had to watch them all.
Yeah, yeah.
I couldn't say what I thought until I watched all of them. And that was fabulous because I had the wrong idea about a lot of it. When I was on DS9, I would see 7 of 9 on a big, by the side of the road on a big poster, and I'd go, oh, I see, now they're just selling sex. And I was disgusted. I was like, I don't need to watch the show. But when I actually did, she's a Trojan horse. Because you may come for that costume, but you stay because of the humanity and the number of people she can represent and the relationship between these 2 women, which wasn't depicted so often. So I got an education for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I think it says also, what did you learn? You just said it, so absolutely. So I'll jump out there and take the questions, but before that, as always, thank you. Thank you for your talents, and thank you for your professionalism, and thank you for the performances, what you brought to Star Trek, something I love and always will love. But this whole career of yours, you've done a fantastic body of work, and we love Star Trek, but we love you, and we're always going to be looking forward to the next thing that you take part in.
Thank you so much, Patty. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
These were in your pocket for a while, weren't they?
No.
They're a little warm.
No,
They melted. I can't get the damn thing open.
Here, have a fresh one.
Yeah. Maybe there's
the green ones are good.
The green ones are good.
Yes,
Thank you very
made
much.
from Vulcan blood. All right, tell you what. If you want me over here, the little Q&A mark, that way we'll get you on camera and all that fun stuff. So, all right. Ooh, hey, not bad for a 58-year-old. Hey, hi, what's your name?
Tyson.
What you got, Tyson?
You kind of hinted on this a little bit, and I apologize if this is in the book. But you had mentioned that, like 7 of 9, that you felt as though Star Trek was selling sex. Watching Star Trek throughout my entire life, it wasn't until rewatching some of it myself as an adult that I did find that Counselor Troy in Next Gen and 7 of 9 did seem to be a little bit more sexualized than I might have noticed as a teenage boy. My question for you is did you find that your character was done up in that way? Maybe if you had issues with the skin tight uniform, and did that change at all throughout the evolution of the series?
I so wanted to be in Starfleet because they had those cool uniforms that were not skin tight. And, absolutely, well, you remember my first costume wasn't sexy at all. I had flat boots. It was great. But then the producers came to me, and I'd been in the business for a while now, and I knew what the problem was. I was a little too much. I was a little too angry. How can we soften you? And soften meant sexualize. So I went, okay, put me in heels. Put me in heels because that's like hooves. Now I'm prey. Now I can't run so fast. So that will change the way I walk. It'll change the perception of me, and that's what they did. And they changed my costume as well into this skin-tight thing. Also padding, which was like, you don't have a choice in that. So absolutely, we were supposed to fit into this box of what a woman in the future's body was supposed to look like. Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
And Deanna Troi, by the way, yes, she was the princess and things and pretty and stuff, but over and over, I found that young girls could find themselves, could find something familiar that they'd been told was acceptable for them in Deanna Troi, and it was their way into Star Trek, which is in a way into a whole way of thinking. So it was like, yeah, that works.
Hi, what's your name?
My name's Ken. Well, Nana, I had been, they had Brent Spiner on the new Night Court recently, and I thought, I'll go back and watch all the old Night Courts and get to one episode, and I'm like, that looks like Nana Visitor. I'm pretty certain it is, and check the credits on it. And it was an episode you had your hair dark. Yep. So, yeah. I was just wanting to ask, because there were so many performers who came, who had been in Night Court. Brent Spiner had, John Larroquette had, you had as well. What was your experience on Night Court, and how did you enjoy it?
Reinhold Wiggy was the writer, executive producer on that. And originally, at the beginning of the week, when it's a half hour, you do the reading, and then you start blocking the scenes. And then the last day, you shoot it. And the character wasn't that. But they started just because they saw that I would just throw myself into, impersonations, whether I could do it or not. I don't do a good James Mason, but I'd get the new edition of the script the next day, and they'd say, "Come on, now we know you can do it, James Mason, do it." And before the line, it was like, okay, all right, I'll just throw myself into this, and it was wonderful fun and challenging, and to keep up with John Larroquette, was delightful.
Thank you. Good one. Thank
You
you.
bet.
Hi, what's your name?
Crimson. Well, you were kind of mentioning it a little bit, that Star Trek has always been a bit of a show that wants to challenge the social norms through a different lens and everything. And, kind of taking away from Star Trek, what's some media that you consumed recently that also has a lot of social talk that you would recommend?
I don't watch a lot. I watch documentaries right now. That's just like, but I go into like these things. Like when I moved to New Mexico for a couple of months, I just painted crows over and over and over again. I was just in a crow thing. And right now I'm in a documentary thing. So I can't really speak to that. I do hope there are other things like Star Trek, but I don't know of one that is so global. It's just, and I think part of it is 60 years. Part of it is Desi Arnaz discovering that you film these things and show them in syndication, and it just becomes part of the fabric of our lives. It was for me. It's what I watched. Oh, you know, every night on Channel 11, I watched Star Trek, as we all did, and that. Can you imagine if it had been on 3 years? And we never saw it again. Gone. And I wonder, someone was talking about this the other day. The fact that these shows that do 3 seasons, 10 shows a season, can they be syndicated? Can they be run like our shows that did 7 years and 26 episodes? I don't know. And I think that's going to be sad because they're probably going to be really good shows that are doing what you're talking about that I haven't seen because there's so much out there that just get thrown by the wayside.
And it is hard now in the modern things as we don't have channels anymore, the channel surfing, and we don't have the primary networks where we had our water cooler shows on weekends. On Mondays, we're all talking about it now. Now it's like,
Right.
oh, have you caught that yet? Oh, what's it on? It's on Apple. Oh, I don't have Apple. I've got everything else.
Yeah.
So it's harder for everybody to be on the same page.
That's right.
You know, but by the same token, there's this wonderful plethora of shows out there. A lot of it's really good, but it isn't getting the attention that it would, unfortunately. So this is the challenge part. Are you aware
I
of
was
anything
just
that we should know
about to
about?
ask Crimson.
That's a really hard question to ask. I consume a lot more newer age media. I'm younger. Of course, Has Been Hotel and other stuff has been here at the show. It's a lot more mature, but I think it does challenge a lot of different social medias, and it's good. It's good to consume a lot of things, and it doesn't matter if it's not necessarily your style. I think it's good to reach out. It doesn't have to be media as like you watch it, read books and other stuff. Read your book.
I call it eating your vegetables. As for media goes, I always recommend you go watch an old black and white movie on Tubi. Watch this, too. So stretch it out, and it goes both ways. Old codgers like me, yes, I was like, has been okay, and here I am, ended up loving it, and then hosting them on stage. So, Crimson, thank you so much for your insight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hey, what's your name?
Savannah. Hi. So I had a whole different question planned, but then you said you watched all the Star Trek series, which is not common for people who are in shows and movies. What's your favorite series, and who's your favorite character, not including Kira Nerys?
Ooh. I'll add a little caveat to that. What's one of your favorite series and one of your favorite characters?
Okay, so I won't say DS9 because it is, but I'll choose another one. Lower Decks. I was so impressed, not only because I interviewed Mike for the book too, the writer, executive producer, and he is, first of all, a really interesting, good human, but he's also a huge fan. And everyone that he hired was a huge fan. And you can tell because you can't do such loving jokes and make them funny. And they hit that sweet spot of loving Star Trek and being able to be light about it. Also, to look at the interesting question of a character wondering if, not is she right for Starfleet, but is Starfleet right for her? And I thought that was a really interesting delving into. In amongst all the funniness, there's some really deep, interesting questions that he goes into.
What's one of your favorites?
DS9.
Okay, all right, good. All right.
No, but I believe her.
Hi, what's your name?
Anna. Yeah. I have a more specific Deep Space Nine character question that's good to ask. I have always wondered, so after the Dominion took over, there was the whole kind of fight, avoiding each other with Kira and Odo, and we never saw how they reconciled. I wondered if you had any ideas of how that might have gone and how Kira kind of forgave him and they came to an understanding.
You know, I think just the way marriage is, in real life reconcile. Sometimes you just, I'll never forget. I can't remember the episode name, but at the end of the episode, Odo realizes that Kira did something morally wrong, that he considers morally wrong. And there's huge judgment in his eyes, and you can feel him pulling away. And they got over that, and I think it's the same kind of thing. It's like sometimes you go, okay, I learned that, and I choose to go on with this person. But I think that's what was so interesting about them. It was such a human relationship between these two aliens.
Oh, there you go. Thank you, and thank you for your service. Hi, what's your name?
Siobhan. Yeah, so I'm sure you kind of talk about this in your book, which I now really want to read. But I love both the Kira and Dax characters so much. And one thing I really love about them is they're both very strong, complex women, but they have this very deep friendship and respect for each other that I feel like, especially at the time, you maybe didn't see as much. So how do you think that had an effect on society and like pop culture at the time?
I think both characters had a real effect, and not only on the culture at the time, but the women coming after us in the show. And just, you can see, that horrible scene, and it's unfair. We all have horrible scenes in shows, but the scene between Gates and Marina where they're in exercise clothes, you know the scene. And it's like we go from that to Dax saying, what is it like to take a life? And having a deep conversation with Kira about that. Not about our bodies, not about a boyfriend, not about, it's like real ethical questions. That was a big deal. That was a big leap. And I know from people who have come up to me, not just women, who say that Kira had a huge effect on them, and seeing, just kind of broadening what they thought it was acceptable to be. And certainly Terry's character had the same. But Ira Stephen Bear would say he wished he'd gone further. I mean, they were working at quite the pace, 26 episodes over and over for 7 years. Not easy to meet everything and make it interesting, and all the threads. But he feels like that's one thread he dropped. He wished he'd strengthened the friendship even more.
But we're glad for what we got.
Yeah, glad. I'm thrilled for what we got.
Hi, what's your name?
Josh. Well, I had a different question, but it was already asked. So, what's your favorite episode of the series?
Or one of your favorite episodes.
General, I'll do it this way. Just general in terms of watching an episode of something that I think could have been a movie, Far Beyond the Stars. But personally, the one that impacted me the most was Duet, because I really understood that they were going to let me have this complex character, and that I could be unreasonable, I could be unlikable, I could be wrong, which you go, yeah, big deal. No, that was a big deal for a lead character to make mistakes, especially a woman, and to be redeemable, to learn. That didn't happen very often. So, and Harris Yulin's performance, good God, he makes me cry. I had reason to watch it again recently, and his laughing and crying through the explanation of what he had done and why, it brings me to tears. It's a masterclass in acting.
What's your favorite episode?
It's only a paper moon.
Yes.
Hey, welcome back. What you got this time?
Because so I know it was mentioned before, your costumes being sexualized, but like, what was one of the hardest moments costume-wise besides that for you?
For Star Trek?
Yes.
Well, the intendant took this bath, and I've just never chosen to do any kind of nudity. Some people are really comfortable with it. I just went, no, I don't ever want to do that. So even taking the bath, it was like, no, you're going to have to find these horrible cups that you're gonna glue on me. And I'd get into the water. They made it hot, which was really nice. But and we're filming the scene, and it's not a long scene, but it's annoying because the cups keep floating off. And so what I found out is the thing that takes the glue off is orange oil. The guys put orange oil in the bath to be nice, I think. So it smelled good for me. But yeah, I was constantly having to get out and go, oh, okay, no, let's glue these back on. Yeah, so that was a not fun bit of wardrobe malfunction.
Oh boy. All right, go thank you. So, hi, what's your name?
Brooks. I'm always excited to see stars of Star Trek on other shows they did before they were stars on Star Trek. And I saw you on several episodes of Matlock. The most fun looked to be two psychologists who were feuding as they were getting divorced. But the one on Murder, She Wrote, you were a foil for a character who was kind of standing in as the lead when Angela Lansbury wasn't able. And I was wondering, they put in a lot of backstory to that character. Was it something that they told you could recur, because his character recurred, and I wasn't sure if you were
they were
more.
they were trying to do a backdoor pilot for him. That's called a backdoor pilot because they weren't going to pay pilot fees, but they were looking at that episode to see, could we spin these two characters off into a series. So, but that did not happen. But that was like normal. I don't know how many pilots I did. I was yeah, we all did it. We all did a million. Sometimes you get two pilots in a season, which you'd have to do first or second place. And it was like, yeah, it was a way to make money. And then you know that you'd have the season of guest stars coming up.
And of course, in original Star Trek, Gary Seven was a backdoor pilot, for that character with Tim and Terry Garr. So that's it. It was a you don't see it anymore, obviously, but it's always a cute thing. You go across an old series, it's like the main character's gone, and here's a bunch of other people, whatever. Right. But yeah, but it was always there. So, hey, come on up. Hi, what's your name?
Joe. What you got, Joe? Hey, Nana. One of my favorite things about DS9 is over the whole course of the series is the dynamic between your character and Ducat, and how it was always adversarial, but then the period when your character was forced to work with him on the station, you almost become familiar with each other because kind of that day to day. And on one episode, you finally caught yourself like, "What am I doing?" I'm laughing. I'm having dinner with him, and just that and realizing that what this character actually represents. And then also along with that, the episodes where when you had the Cardassian father Gamor. My question was like, how challenging was that for you as an actor to get those dynamics right, and how did you feel your character grew, like in your own words?
It wasn't hard because the thought that I dropped in my head at the beginning of the show is, and it's how bias works. Everything wrong with the world is people with lizard necks. Everything cruel and bad, they have lizard necks. To the point where I'd see them in makeup and my body would react. I could feel myself tense. So that informed that part of it. So that's one layer. And then the other layer is the actual person that I'm interacting with and finding connection with in spite of my bias. So that was how I worked with that. And what was the other question you had? You had that and...
You feel your character grew
yes.
through the series, and like from episode 1 until end of the series, like how would you describe that growth through the 7 seasons?
recovery. This is a young woman with post-traumatic stress, and her protection is anger and realizing that she's alone in the world and she can't trust anybody, and she's going to have to watch out for herself and the people that are important to her. And she progresses to gradually feeling safe, realizing she's not alone, realizing these people are ethical and worthwhile, and she can gradually stop reacting and start responding and start learning. Because when you're in that state, you can't progress, you can't learn, you're stuck. And she was unstuck, and she started to learn how to be political, how to be emotionally intelligent. Otherwise, she could never have come up against Louise Fletcher and survived. Yeah, really, she wouldn't have. So she learned how to respond and take the time. So for me, that arc is a wonderful arc of maturity and recovery.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Our last question here for the day. Hey, what's your name?
Mark. What you got? DS9 had so many good villains. Who's your favorite villain?
Oh. I think, oh God, there were so many. I think the classic is Mark Alimo. He was an amazingly charismatic villain, and that was what made him great, because even Kira goes, "You're awful, but I like you. You've done terrible things, but I'm watching you for some reason. I just want to." So I think Mark Alimo he's like a Shakespearean villain, you know, the anti-hero, really. Yeah. How about you? Kai Wynn, damn it, she was scary. She was so scary. Yeah, I agree. And Louise, off camera, couldn't have been a sweeter soul. So sweet and kind and lovely, down to earth. No, I mean, for God's sakes, you know, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and she's on set like she's just one of us. Yep. Not everyone was like that. I gotta say it. I never say it, but I'll never forget Frank Langella on set. I was across the room doing, I don't know what I was doing. We were getting ready to film. We were in costume. And he goes, "Come sit next to me. Tell me all about the show." Just like, yeah, I'm busy. I got stuff to
Come
do.
hither and tell me.
Yes, yeah. But that
Pray
was his
elucidates this thing we're doing.
Yeah, but that was his character, so he may have just been getting into character, but I was in mine. That's for sure.
What's anything project-wise coming up you're allowed to share?
I'm doing more writing. We'll see what happens with it. I'm collaborating with someone. So that's a long and strange and other interesting process. And I've started singing again. So I've gone back to singing. So I'm going to see what I can make of that. It's like a new way of telling stories for me. Because I didn't pay, you know, when I got shows, it was like, wait, what note do I have to hit to get the job? So I'll get that and just do. I was interested in singing like that, but not really getting into it and paying attention to it. I was much more of a dancer. So that's what I'm doing.
Awesome, very awesome. One final question for me. Do you want to take a picture with this lovely audience?
I would love to.
All right, everybody, come on up towards the stage. This picture will be available for download at our Flickr account. Please sign up for our email newsletter if you haven't already.